Hi everyone, it's Becky here. So welcome to another new video on my YouTube channel. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how I composed this art journal spread with pen and watercolors. So it was my mom's birthday, and today after dinner we're having some hazelnut cake. Here's my slice, and I'm going to sketch it before eating. So a slice of cake is a three-dimensional shape, so we can see 2 or 3 sides of it. So here I'm drawing the side view. It's kind of like a diamond or trapezoid shape, and the top shape is being covered by lots of fruits. So I'm just drawing this strawberry over here. The top part is roughly a triangle shape, and the smaller side on the right hand side is a smaller trapezoid shape, and it's being covered with lots of nuts. And this top shape has a lot of icings. Just adding the seeds for the strawberry here, using a lot of loose lines to suggest cream, icing, and hazelnut. Just drawing very quickly to summarize what I see instead of trying to be exactly the same. So these are almond pieces. And now drawing this round shape of the dish and the rim. And quickly drawing the florals on the dish. And I think I'm going to draw my little fork. Okay, and that's it for the drawing. Now I'm ready to paint with my watercolors. It's Etchr watercolors with 24 half pens in it. So before putting color on, I'd like to wet the area first with clear water so the paint can spread out easily. So now I am grabbing some lemon yellow. This is like the color of the cake that I see. It's very watery. The color of the cake is not that dense. Okay, so now I'm grabbing some brown or burnt sienna to paint in the parts where the hazelnut cream is. Also add a little bit of shade color for the almonds. Again, this burnt sienna or brown color is very diluted. And now I want to paint this strawberry with red or magenta, and leaving some tiny spots of highlights because it looks very shiny with icing covering it, and painting the green stamps. Wet on wet, another layer of brown. This is more intense with less water and more paint. So as you can see, I'm just pressing the colors on with brush strokes instead of stirring too much. I want to just give a really natural look of watercolor brush strokes by not giving too much control. And again, a little bit more intense layer of brown for this side of the cake. Painting in layers in watercolors really gives depth and intensity for the things that we paint. And same for the strawberry, just another layer of more intense red purple. And now I will paint the plate. I wetted the plate with water and just using leftover gray. It's not really gray, but a mix of ultramarine blue with purple. Painting the handle of the fork. A little bit red here and there for the florals. Greens for the leaves. Shadow around the edge of the cake. Again, it's a mix of ultramarine blue with purple. And painting the tiny area of the fork. So painting something metallic is pretty straightforward for me. It's pretty much like using a lot of ultramarine blue with purple to get that metallic color. And now just painting the shadow for the plate, darker around the edge, so it looks sharper. Shadow for the little fork too. Just add another quick layer for the surface of the cake. And that's it. That's my finished sketch. It took me about 12 minutes from drawing to painting. And here is the empty plate after eating. So the sunset, clouds, and colors never really repeat. So here's another gorgeous view outside my reading room window in the evening. And of course, I'm going to do a sketch in my art journal. So I just drew a little panorama frame just to easily fit everything inside. I'm starting with this foreground element, the rooftop of my neighbors, the body of the house, the third floor, the window on the side. I think having like a foreground element in a sketch just make it look much stronger, especially when you're painting a large area of sky. And the forest, contour outline in the distance, and the rooftops. So I stopped drawing and I want to paint right now because the sunset colors are fading away very fast. Okay, so I'm just wetting the whole sky area with clear water, adding on thin brush strokes of yellow orange and magenta, just following what I see. Just let the colors blend together without over blending. Cerulean blue for the top of the sky. This layer is pretty watery. I want the sky to be very transparent or translucent. After painting the sky, I'm going to add the clouds. So now I am mixing in ultramarine blue with a little bit purple to get this blue-purple color. And just use small jumpy brush strokes as I see what's in front of me, these feathery clouds floating on top of the sky. Lots of ultramarine blue. This layer of cloud is very dark around the horizon. Using thin brush strokes accordingly to my observation. A lot of ultramarine blue with less water and more paint in it, so it looks very strong. Okay, so now I'm back to drawing again, just to finish drawing those rooftops and trees using very simple geometric shapes, just to simplify what I see with these very basic shapes. There's no need to go into deep detail because my focus is the sky. Okay, and back to painting again. Just gonna paint this part of the house first. It's leftover yellows, yellow ochre, and orange red to suggest the colors of autumn, blending on radiant green. So the forest in the distance right now around sunset is very dark, almost a black silhouette. So I'm mixing in a lot of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna or brown into it to darken the shade of green. And just quickly painting the houses with brown. And painting the windows and the shadows around the roof. Intensify the forest there, and that's it. And the next thing I want to sketch is this new jar of hazelnut spread from my grocery shopping. So when drawing a jar or other containers, I always like to draw the lid first. The very top is the shape of an ellipse, and then the thickness. And the body of the jar, nice and round, the label is curvy, following the curve of the surface. And just drawing the brand seal on top of the lid, and these two little teddy bears. And then just draw the paper label details. Pretty straightforward. And lastly, just draw the shine on plastic and draw a platform so it stands out better. That's it for the drawing. And now I'm ready to add watercolors. I think I want to paint the label first because the color is very light. Starting with the lightest colors, as always, medium yellow and yellow ochre. And now I'm adding the first layer for the hazelnut, seeing through the plastic, brown or burnt sienna. Mix it with a little bit yellow and paint the rest of the brown colors around and add a shade color for the lid. Putting on cerulean blue for the label. Really nice cold contrasting color with the warm yellows and browns. Okay, so after the first layer of the hazelnut spread dries up a bit, I'm adding on a second layer, a darker tone of brown. So just mixing ultramarine blue into burnt sienna. So the brown turns darker. And not painting in the white highlights to show the shine of the plastic jar. So there are a lot of browns on this jar and label details. So by mixing more or less water into the paint, we can create slightly different tones of brown. Okay, and now I want to use the leftover mix of ultramarine blue and purple to add a further darker shade for the lid. Adding another layer of cerulean blue to intensify the label so it looks stronger. Okay, and then just one last layer for the hazelnut spread inside. I added even more ultramarine blue because this brown is very, very dark. And lastly, just add a more intense layer of shadow for the lid. Wet the area of the bottle's shadow and put on a mix of ultramarine blue and purple. Cleaning my brush and taking some colors off because the shadow is not that strong, but it's darker around the bottom. And next, I want to sketch this new jar of salsa from my grocery shopping. I always love sketching glass, transparent jars, containers. So again, when sketching a container, I always like to sketch the lid first. So the very top is the shape of an oval or ellipse. And then the left and right, the bottom is nice and round. And the label is pretty big for this jar. Just add these label details like table of nutrients. And now I'm drawing the visuals and the text on the label. So everything on here is following the curve of the container. So they're not perfectly straight stuff. And finally, just draw these texture marks seen through the glass jar. And that's it. So as always, I like to paint the lightest colors that I see on the surface. The yellows, yellow-orange, and reds. So just painting the lid and leaving tiny streaks of highlight around the edge of the lid. And this part of the label is orange. Very straightforward. and just mixing red with ultramarine blue to get this color for the salsa on the label. Some yellow or yellow ochre for those tortilla pieces. And again, this color is magenta mixed with orange and a little bit of ultramarine blue. As you can see, I'm leaving tiny thin streaks of highlight for the glass jar. It's very important. It's a very tiny detail, but it defines the property or the quality of glass. And just add another more intense layer of orange for the label. And grabbing some leftover mix of blue and purple for the seemingly white parts of the label, because nothing is really perfectly white except for the white highlights of glass. And add a bit of shade for the lid using leftover color just to give it more 3-dimension. And mixing in this dark red-brown color for the second layer of the salsa seeing through the glass jar. So I like painting in layers because this second layer is not completely covering the first layer of red, brown, orange color. It really gives a sense of depth by painting in layers. So you can mix this darker tone of red-brown by mixing in magenta with burnt sienna and a little bit of ultramarine blue. There's so many ways to mix this color. And mixing in more ultramarine blue to make this color even darker and more intense. So as you can see, I'm painting darker around the edge, around the boundary between the label and the salsa. So I'm creating a really sharp boundary between the label and the salsa. Okay, just adding a few more brush strokes of more intense red-brown for the label. Just bits of last bit of little brush strokes here and there. Okay, now I'm ready to paint the shadow for this glass container. So just wet the area first with clear water, using leftover color of ultramarine blue mixed with purple or red. I put a dash of red over there to show the reflective color of salsa, and darker around the bottom. So the light comes from the right hand side, so the shade is on the left hand side. As you can see now, I'm darkening the left hand side of the jar. Alright, so here is the look of my art journal spread so far. I still have some more space to fill in. Let's see what I'm going to do next. Okay, so I think I'm going to sketch the evening sky outside. I can see more colors in the sky than the camera. Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna draw a frame. This is not a rectangle, but it's an interesting shape inspired by graphic novels or comics. And now I'm starting with the outline of the forest around the horizon and connecting the rooftops below. So I've been drawing this view so many times over the years, I can draw pretty fast. So try to simplify what I see into different parts of geometric shapes, like triangles, trapezoids, squares, and more forest behind this roof. Add a bit of tree texture, just a little bit, and rooftop details, the arc, a bit of shade for the forest to give more density, and that's it for the drawing. Now I will paint before the colors fade away. So as artists, we can make the colors that we see in real life a bit more intense. So here I'm adding magenta red, and then on top is lemon yellow and ultramarine blue, very much diluted, mixed with the lemon yellow. Okay, very watery. The sky usually is very translucent. And another layer of more intense magenta red, very thin streak as I observe. A bit more lemon yellow, more intense as I add less water into the paint. Mixing ultramarine blue with purple to get this blue-purple for the cloud. It's kind of feathery. Mixing in more ultramarine blue because this cloud is not flat. It has different shades of purple blue. Okay, and now I want to add even more intense purple blue around the horizon. This is what I observe. Very thin streak of cloud. So the clouds around the horizon, they always look very thin compared to the clouds on top. Okay, a bit more here. Okay, I think the sky is done now. I think I've captured the essence and I'm happy with it and not gonna overstir it. And now I'm just painting the rooftops, mostly with brown, burnt sienna. Maybe mix in a little bit ultramarine blue to darken the brown. And mixing the color for the forest, using viridian green with a little bit burnt sienna or brown. Just add quick shadow for the house. So a lot of burnt sienna with viridian green to get this intense green for the evergreen trees in the distance. I want these forests to look stronger, so there's more contrast with the sky. These are almost like silhouettes, and this is the effect I want. I want them to be nice and sharp and strong to help the sky stand out even better. Last bit of shadows around the house. Because the day is getting darker, I want a shade of ultramarine blue purple for the top of the rooftops. And lastly, I'm going to sketch these two mini mandarin oranges in the last little space here on my art journal spread. Just going to do a really quick one because it's getting dark very soon. So I'm just drawing this little orange in the front and the one behind. Adding the stem and the wrinkles, the stem and the wrinkles, and add a bit of dots to suggest the pores. And just drawing this peeled piece over here. The outline is very round and I see two halves, like the shape of a half moon on top, adding a few wrinkles, same as this one. It's like a top view. Add some wrinkles. And here I'm drawing the peel of the little orange. Kind of overlaps with the fork. It's okay, just let go. Simply add some wrinkles to suggest the texture for the inside, the white part. And that's it for the drawing. Okay, so for this painting process, I'm going to keep it really simple. So I just quickly wetted the area first with clear water and just put on orange, very much diluted. This is the first layer. I like to keep the first layer more watery. And for the full oranges here, as you can see, I'm being very careful, leaving some little spots of highlights. second layer, put on a dark shade of orange by mixing in purple into the orange, because these two are complementary colors. So now the oranges look a bit more three-dimensional. Because it's getting very dark right now, it's like 5 p.m. and these oranges look very dark in the natural lighting. So there are a lot of shade areas. So the light source comes from the living room window in front of me. And because it's getting very dark, most of these oranges are actually in dark shade. So the colors are not really vibrant. Okay, and now I'm going to quickly paint the shadows by wetting the area first with the reflective orange color and put on a mix of ultramarine blue and purple. Nice and watery, and darker around the bottoms. Here and there. And that's it. Just gonna keep it really simple. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you like my video, please click like and leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. And I will see you very soon next time. Have a great day.